Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Speedplay Italy and Hearts of Iron 3 number 9. We left off watching the German-Soviet War more or less just grind the two great empires into the dirt. We also are producing quite a few mechanized and armored units and carrying our remaining Marines first back to Australia to pick up the last group. The Americans have landed on us, we're just going to let that happen. And we're going to make another line. Actually, no. First, what we're going to do is defeat these rebels, and second of all, we're going to start making notes of all the major Soviet cities. And I realized that we should actually probably be making notes of all the major Soviet victory point cities. So we go ahead and note where all of the major victory points are in the Soviet Union, and we'll basically use that note to determine when to advance against the Soviets or against the Germans. Now, there are a few issues taking place just all throughout. They're all very minor, though. The Germans are making some pretty great progress against the Soviet Union, which is a little worrying as I've been building all of my forces up against the Soviets. So we're going to build quite a large amount of infantry to just man the border with Germany, and they are going forward quite rapidly now. The plan is essentially that if they take around 4 or 5 of those blue points, that we're going to start transferring our forces against the Germans and get ready to defeat them. We also go to take the Azores back from the Canadians, and that goes fairly well. So at any rate, we're still just building our forces up, and that's pretty much what we're going to be doing for the next while. Is really at this point, even though there is the threat that something's going to happen, and we attempt to land in Iceland, but we can't actually make it all the way to Iceland no matter where we base our forces. So we go ahead and attack Sweden. Anyway, though, we have some time is the main point. The Americans are being a problem in Southeast Asia, but we don't really need to worry about Southeast Asia. The Germans and the Soviets appear to be more or less even. The Germans are making progress, but they're not anywhere near the point of no return. So we're going to just ship our Marines over, declare war to puppet the Swedes because they are still technically neutral, and we'll just take all of their ports over. We also reorganize our military. We have quite a few mechanized groups to place. Now the Germans have cut us off from the Soviet Ukraine region, and we are about to win this first battle against the Swedes. We drop off all of our Marines and just force them to give up their next attack. And they don't even have any forces down at this victory point. More mechanized units are being placed. We go ahead, pick up these Marines, take them back. It doesn't look like they're actually attacking. So we'll just load everybody up and send them over to Stockholm, where we'll just unload them. And it looks as though we're winning that. They do actually take over that one victory point again, so that is under their control once more. Once again, we're dropping off more forces, just continuing our build-up. We take over Stockholm. Now we'll rush over to the next city and retake this new capital of theirs, the first city we'd taken. The Soviets pressed the Germans away from the border, which is pretty good news, and it looks as though the Swedes are now our puppet, which is all pretty great. The Germans are doing fairly well on their front. They are losing in some areas, winning in some others, which basically means that I'm not comfortable actually attacking either side, as I really want there to be one side distinctly winning before we intervene. Japan annexed Mongolia, which kind of hints that it's maybe the Axis side that's winning, and it looks as though the Axis may cut us off from the Ukraine once more. We do start having our infantry complete, which means we can place them all over the Swiss border, and eventually just all over our border with Germany. Now, the main force, the actual forces that will be doing the hard work, will be our mechanized and armor. However, infantry does do a very good job of just holding the front. And the Germans are making some decent progress. So, come December, which is right now, we're going to go ahead and draw this fancy new line that shows the extent of German progress. And we'll use that line to determine who's winning as time goes forward. Tons of rebellions, a lot are in Africa, which we're just not going to bother dealing with because Africa has very little industrial capacity. Everywhere else we will deal with the rebellions as they spring up. And it looks as though the Soviets are making some minor progress in the north and losing in the south. Really, though, it's too early to say. So what we're really going to do is just keep building up our armies. keep getting as many officers as we can. The Germans definitely winning in the south. More rebellions in India. We're probably going to have to face some fairly consistent rebellions just generally. We're not really researching very quickly anymore, as we're putting a lot of focus in our officer corps, which needs to expand rapidly in order to meet the demands of our rapidly increasing army. And the Germans are definitely doing very well in the south. We do start building up some naval elements, because at this point we have a full army ready to go, and we have hopefully enough infantry in production that will be able to fill out the line. And once all that's taken care of, we're going to have to worry about very long-term plans, which will be against the United States and Canada and Mexico, and really just all the allied states. The Germans are definitely making progress, which is kind of worrying, because I do have the vast majority of my force on the border of the Soviet Union, and now technically also on the border with Germany, because they cut us off from Ukraine. At any rate, we are getting more and more infantry ready to go as the days tick by, which means we will hopefully get this whole frontier covered, and in the worst case, since the Germans don't actually appear to have any reserves whatsoever, we'll just be able to rush forward a little bit and defend in enemy territory instead of in our own, which is always preferable. Now, with all these forces ready, we're probably going to have to create even more infantry, as we more or less underestimated the amount of men it would take to man the border, and this of course pushes down our officer ratio even lower. We do need to get it up to 140% before it's ideal. So we're not quite there yet. At any rate, we do just take care of production a bit and really just sort of wait it out. And the Americans are doing a lot in Southeast Asia. It's a little worrying, not too bad though for us, as we would fight the Japanese anyway. We deal with our Air Force a little bit, and generally just keep watching the front. I know it's been a few episodes now where we haven't really been doing anything but building up our army. Honestly, I think we really needed it though, as our army, as it wasn't really a considerable force in the world. We had the smallest possible force that could be considered a major world power. Now that the Germans and the Soviets have worn each other down to the nub, we might actually have an army big enough to take out one or both of them. That is a mix of them just attritioning away at one another for the past several years, and also our buildup, and it looks as though the Soviets are starting to make a serious, prolonged counteroffensive, as they are pressing back all the way to the yellow line in the north. The Germans still pressing forward quite a bit in the south, though. We do go ahead and build up even more naval elements, just because we can. And yeah, at this point we are still building up against the Hungarians and just generally the Germans at large. It is very telling, though, that they don't have any reserves on our borders, though. And the Soviets still have all of their reserves on our border. Now, just how telling that is remains to be seen, although it is getting a little bit worrying just how quickly they are pressing against the Germans. Now, we have missed essentially this entire year's campaign season. However, with the Soviet Union now just completely destroying the Germans on every front, well, not every front, on the entirety of their one front, we are going to have to start worrying about getting our forces into position probably sooner than later, as it does look as though Germany is in complete collapse. We do retake the Azores, this time from America, and we're going to have to go over and pluck up our last mechanized units, which we kind of forgot about. And the Germans have been pressed back even beyond the green line, so they are definitely losing now, which means sooner than later, in fact, probably in the ideal world, we're going to have to attack the Soviet Union pretty much right now. It's nearly winter, so what that means is it's kind of like in the ancient world during the Greco-Persian Wars. The Greeks fought a naval battle near sunset. The reason for that was they weren't sure if they would win, and since it was near sunset, they knew that once night fell, the naval battle would be over, so they could detach if things went poorly. we're going to attack the Soviet Union right before winter, because if things do go poorly, everyone will get bogged down in the Russian winter, and we'll be able to reorganize our forces during the period where we can't actually fight and they can't actually fight. At any rate, we organize all of our forces into the various armies, get our Marines ready to go, and when we come back, Operation Black Ice will begin. Thank you very much for your patience. Please like, share, and subscribe.